that binds to minor grooves. So double-stranded RNA and DNA have minor grooves. Single-stranded RNA does not. So this dye predominantly binds double-stranded DNA when you're using something like Pico Green. But some of the double-stranded RNA that's in these vaccines is probably lighting up on it as well. So what you do have to do is measure this when there's DNA and RNA present, use an enzyme that destroys the RNA, remeasure it, and then treat it with DNase to get rid of all the DNA and measure it a final time. And we've done this. This work is in preparation for publication with David Speaker. But you can see when you do this, it's important to use soaps to break open the LNPs, otherwise you can't measure things effectively. We use soap and heat. Then you get a very, very large measurement up here that's in like the microgram range. You then treat it with RNase, it comes down and you're in the 100 nanogram range, way over the limit. And if you continue to treat these things with DNase, it starts to take the DNA out of the picture and you get back down to baseline. Now, that being said, while they didn't use RNase in Bridget Koenig's work, Germany has been known to have the most contaminated lots. So, you know, I can't really comment on exactly if her data is elevated or not, because we have not tested the same lots. But we do find when we test lots from Germany, they're the most contaminated we've ever found. We're getting CT scores in the 13 range. For those who are familiar with the quantitative PCR mess that occurred, you were called positive for COVID-19 at a CT sometimes of 40 or 45. For those not familiar with the log scale on PCR, every 10 CTs is 1,000-fold. So let's say 20 CTs is 1,000,000-fold. They were calling you positive for COVID for 1,000,000-fold less nucleic acid on the outside of your nose than what they're willing to inject into you as a contaminant. All right, 1,000,000-fold. They're willing to inject 1,000,000-fold more contaminant through your mucosal membrane than what they're trying to scrape off the outside of your mucosa in your nose. So this is a very, very large discrepancy in their thesis of safety, if you will. All right, now the last thing. I think I have enough time for, cut me off if I go over here. This is part of some really preliminary work right now that does not have as much reproduction. So I just want to spell that out, that this is done in our lab and no one to date has reproduced this. So it's very bleeding edge, if you will. But we think it's worth sharing with the public. The reads are public and others are downloading it and finding interesting bits of information inside the data that we put public.
And Mr. McKernan,
this is work that was done in collaboration with Uli Kammermer in Germany. She treated ovarian cancer cell lines with the vaccines. She then sent them to us. We performed PCR to see if the DNA made it into the cells and to see if the DNA made it into the genome. There are some considerations that when you do this type of sequencing, you have to be aware of artifacts that can occur. And this is an important point that I'll touch on as we go on. But preliminarily, we've in doing this, we have found one integration event that we're fairly confident of. A second integration and on the long-term fidelity of the human genome. Thank you.
Mr. McKernan, just so that people fully understand who Joseph Ladapo is so he's the Surgeon General for the state of Florida, and my understanding is that he stopped COVID-19 vaccination based on the adulteration of it by DNA, which flowed from your work.
Yes, yeah, he's been in contact with us. We've shared our findings with him, and I'm sure he's taken more than just our advice, because independent of this contamination issue, there is a safety and efficacy issue. These things don't work. And so there's a double negative. They're contaminated, adulterated, and it's looking as if, if you take a very neutral review of the data, these things may be harming more people than they're helping.
Right, and I just wanted to stress, because I think it doesn't end up in the mainstream media, and I think a lot of people viewing your evidence will be surprised to learn that the state of Florida in the United States has basically ceased all COVID-19 vaccines based on the adulteration that they found in your work. I appreciate there may be some other factors, but that was a major factor.
Yes, yeah. I just wanted to emphasize that I don't think the DNA is the only, if you clean up the DNA, they're not out of the woods. All right, the DNA is just a forensic marker for the extraordinary amount of slop that's going on, and it's showing us that the regulatory agencies are running cover for the pharmaceutical clients, if you will. But if they cleaned it up 100%, there's still other issues to contend with. The LNPs are probably toxic. The N1-methylpseudouridine creates frame-shifted proteins. We've got the spike protein potentially having all types of negative externalities with it, and even just the transfection of foreign proteins into your epithelial layers can create all types of havoc that Mark Giardo's put a really nice work around, and he's got a nice book out there I encourage people to take a look at. John Bodwin's another person to look at. He has great evidence of the harm that's going on. So if you guys ever want to call the testimony other people, I would point you toward John's work and Mark's work, because I think they're onto things that show, even if they clean up this DNA, we've got problems.
And I just, so you said the LNPs are toxic. So just those viewing your evidence, you're referring to the lipid nanoparticles that are used to basically encase the RNA, and now we know the DNA fragments, so that they're long-lasting in the body. But that technology itself, the lipid nanoparticles, are themselves toxic, is your evidence.
They are toxic, and they were never designed for repeat injections.
And then,
so we now have people taking 5 or 6 of these things. This is they're meant to be given once.
And